Hello, my name is Nicole Smith, and I'm doing my Capstone research on learning and discovering more about flipped classrooms. I decided on this topic because I had heard about flipped classrooms before from other teachers at my school and also from reading different articles, but I wasn't really sure what it was all about and whether or not it was something that was right for my students. So I decided to learn a little bit more about how to flip a classroom, also how much work it was going to take, what resources I could use, and I was going to eventually try it out in my anatomy and physiology course. Um, I did not want it to be a complete flip right away. I was hoping more just to have some videos for introducing new topics or for students to use as review for tests or quizzes. But the more that I learned about the flipped classroom, I found that it is somewhat beneficial to have more of the lectures and videos at home and hands-on activities in the classroom. I decided to choose this topic and to specifically implement it in my A&P class because a lot of it right now is structured as lecture and the students taking notes, and then the next day they'll complete diagrams in class and work together. But I kind of wanted to avoid the whole lecture note-taking scenario because I feel like a lot of students today, and especially in my anatomy courses, don't really respond well to me simply just telling them about the different parts of the body parts or just lecturing to them as they take notes. Not many students are wanting to just take notes in class. They're wanting more hands-on activities. So I wanted to see if flipped classroom would be something that would work for my students. Also, I thought that it would be helpful to have those videos for my students to be able to refer back to when they're studying, and later on in the year when they have to complete the dissections, they could have those videos that they could return back to as well. Within this introduction, I wrote it at the beginning of this project, and then I went back and revised some of the things I had wrote, and those revisions are in pink italics. So with that statement that I was just explaining, I also found through my research that you can't completely get rid of the lecture and note-taking process. You're always going to have some lectures going on in the flipped classroom, but because those lectures are taking place at home, the students can work at their own pace. They can take the notes that they feel are important and then have that information ready to use in the classroom the next day. So even though they're still getting some of that lecture, most of their time in the classroom is going to be spent on those hands-on activities or demonstrations or labs or working together in groups. So they're still getting more out of their learning experience and hopefully will be more enthusiastic about the whole thing as well. Moving down, some of my goals for this assignment, I wanted to find some way to upload my lectures, whether it was through a site like this or through a site like Moodle. Also, I wanted to be able to upload my assignments and handouts as well, so that if students were absent, they not only had the chance to watch the lectures online, but they could also complete some of the assignments as well. Throughout this process, I also wanted to be able to research classrooms that were flipped. I know there are a couple teachers that flip their classrooms at my school, so I wanted to talk to those teachers as well as talk to some of the students that have those classes as well and see if they thought they were beneficial. I also planned on researching a Moodle and how it works, but I ended up not doing this step as much as I thought I would. After using the Weebly site for this capstone project, I felt like it would probably be a little bit more beneficial for my classroom rather than using Moodle. A lot of teachers use Moodle at my school, but I know that they've had issues with it as well. I've used it in the past, and I felt that Weebly was a lot easier to use, a lot user-friendly, and since it's free, I felt like I could use that for my classroom and just have my students access my lesson plans from here. And if I had to upgrade to the pro version, I could do that as well, or maybe see if my school could help me fund that too. I also decided to look through my lectures to see which one of those would work best. In the flipped classroom, we just finished the skeletal system, which I thought would be good to flip. Instead of me just going up and talking with students about the different bones, the surface structures, all of those things, I could create a lecture showing them those features, and then they could come to class the next day ready to identify them themselves. It would be a little bit more interesting for the students rather than me just sitting up there talking about the different structures on the bone. I also developed a bibliography with lots of resources on flipped classrooms, a lot of websites that had videos on there that you could use from other professors, and also just with a bunch of ideas on how to flip your classroom and why it would be beneficial. And then, of course, reflecting on the process, how it went, what I learned, how it will work in my classroom, and kind of planning for the future as well. Here is an overview of my annotated bibliography. Not only did I find journal articles that showed me about the benefits of doing flipped classrooms, but also showed me what student impressions were on the flipped classrooms or different ideas on how to incorporate a flipped classroom. But I also found a lot of websites that had a multitude of resources for you to use so that it's not so much work and effort to first start the flipping process. Some of the resources that I found were the most helpful. First, Academic Earth was one resource website that had a lot of free online lectures, which I found can be helpful because then students get another perspective on the information rather than just how I explain it. They can see how professors around the world or around the country are explaining different topics, so it just gives them a different point of view. Also, I found the Flipped Learning Journal, which was actually a web page created by teachers who had flipped classrooms, and they created blogs explaining how the process was going for them, new ideas that they were incorporating. So I thought that was very helpful to kind of see how it actually works for some teachers rather than just reading about the experience. They also had a link on there for beginners, which gave you a lot of links on how to go about actually starting the process and made it look a little bit easier than what you might think at first. Moving down, I found some other things like Khan Academy, the live binders, organizing your materials, so it's kind of like putting all of your lesson plans, all of your handouts, all of your assignments into a binder online rather than having just the paper copies. I also appreciated some of the articles, like this one in which the flipped class students talk, where it didn't just give the teacher perspective, but the teacher actually interviewed the students and surveyed them to find out how they felt about the process. And this teacher found that the students were overwhelmingly supportive and felt that they did not even want to go back to the normal classroom setting because this was helping them out so much. And that was in an AP calculus classroom. There was another article I read where it was a college course, and the teacher taught the college course in the normal setting for some classes and then in the flipped setting for others, and surveyed the students to see which one worked best. And he found positives and negatives in both settings, which was also good because I feel reading about some of the negatives would help me through the process as well, seeing what may not work or what may be a problem for some students. Some students didn't like just coming to class and not having as much teacher guidance. They wanted the teacher to be there and tell them what they should be learning, what they should be doing. They didn't like having such open free range. So that's something to keep in mind. Some students are not always going to agree with the process, but trying to still adapt to their needs and give them a little extra guidance through the process is important. Also, for some of the articles I read, I found it was important to just um, copy and paste some of the quotes that were in them because when I go back to these resources, I feel like those will help me. For example, the last article in which she wrote, "Some believe that the flip is somehow designed to replace teachers. I think that's only possible if you think the most important or sole job that I perform in my classroom is content dispenser. I don't believe that at all." That's something I thought was important to keep in mind because a lot of people may think that the flipped classroom, that the teacher doesn't do anything, that the students come in and are on their own, but that's not true. You're still creating those lectures, which would be the content dispenser portion, but then when the students can't come in, you're giving them guidance, you're answering questions, you're giving demonstrations, maybe even lecturing some more if you have to clarify things. So I thought that was an important quote to pick out so that it's something I can come back to and remember. I'm going to pause here for this portion of the presentation and go ahead and start part two of the presentation. This is a good stopping point and I don't want to run out of time.